Warning, warning, arachnophobia warning. If you're afraid of spiders, bugs, or other creepy crawlies, then why the futon did you click on this video? And if you didn't, you're arachnophobic and YouTube just fed this video into your queue automatically, well...
I'm sorry.
A million miles away, in another life, I remember getting copies of Game Informer as a child, being signed up for by my grandmother of all people. I was a little too young to really understand what all the articles were about, and learned all the political stuff being thrown around the games. Hell, I didn't even understand what a sacred cow barbecue was until I was like 17 and remembered that was a thing. But I did read and enjoy several reviews, even if I barely remember them now. I remember reading about games like Prototype, The Chronicles of Riddick, and every latest and greatest Call of Duty. But snuck in at the end of these little old magazines were retro reviews, cheat codes, and funny little anecdotes about the latest games releasing. And amongst those retro reviews, I distinctly remember a little game called Spider. That's it. Just Spider. Hell, I thought it was a fake game, as some publications are wont to do. To this day, I cannot find the actual publication that held this article, I just remember it being there. And, well, since I run a channel that specializes in digging up old forgotten shit, why don't I finally sake this curiosity and plop the game into my consciousness for good this time? Now, I'll admit, finding any information about this game is an uphill struggle. Obviously, with a name like Spider, you're gonna be sharing shoulder space with Spider-Man, but I was only able to find a single trailer and not a very good one. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, the game got mixed to positive reviews and sold 200,000 copies, so worst case scenario, we're dealing with a pretty mid-tier game. Maybe the bad reviews were just from people who didn't like spiders? Wait, what? What are you looking at the screen for? You don't like spiders? Well, why not? You obviously got past the arachnophobia warning. I don't like spiders. Anyways, the game was published by BMG Interactive and developed by Boss Game Studios, the who's on first and what's on second of the gaming industry. Apparently Boss Game Studios was working on a smattering of N64 racing games after Spider, with their most notable game being Top Gear Rally. Interesting, since Top Gear is the best racing game on the SNES. Fight me! And BMG Interactive published, let me see here. Gex, Pandemonium, and Grand Theft Auto? No, wait, this can't be. Yes. Through several acquisitions and mergers, this company eventually went on to become Rockstar Studios. Can't find which particular branch of Rockstar they became, but man, talk about starting from the bottom. I joked about them being unknown, but it seems like there was actual talent behind this game. Wish I knew this before I jumped in, but well. So the game begins and jeez, Boss Game Studios, that's a bit violent, isn't it? This game was rated kids to adults, and nothing reminds me more of safe for kids than the French Revolution! Anyways, we start this game up and we see a scientist working on a cyborg spider, as well as using a device to interface with it. Well, I say interface, but in the manual, which I don't have, but it was archived on a walkthrough I found, claims that this is actually the scientist, whose name is Michael Kelly, by the way, is working on a neurotransmitter. I think that means his consciousness is being placed inside it? I don't know exactly. Anyway, somewhere else a big boss man declares he wants the tech Kelly is working on, so he says two flunkies who clearly didn't pay attention to Resident Evil 2 and shoot him while he's strapped into the project. Kids to adults, I remind you, gunshot wounds! Because he was strapped in, however, it worked a little too well, and now the spider he was working on springs to action. Because of the destruction of the lab, it also means everything else the good doctor was working on is now springing to life. So it's us versus the world, it seems. Dropping into the main menu, and it's weirdly generic, yet also stylish. Like, I can tell Boss Game Studios is trying to be cool and cutting edge, but this is the 90s version of it. Also, the load menu is in the options for some reason. Yeah, thanks for making me search, you assholes. Well, anyways, we set up our stuff and jump right into the game, and we're met with a 2.5D platformer. Interesting. This wasn't what I thought the game was going to be, but I ain't complaining. Now, in case this isn't obvious, Spider's trying to go for as realistic as possible in terms of graphics. On the whole, I think they've succeeded their best for what you can do for 1997. Everything looks really well modeled for the most part, down to being able to see red spots on the back of enemy spiders, making me think that they're perhaps Black Widows if my zoology helps me. Since the game isn't dealing with a lot of humans for the most part, nothing looks straight out of the uncanny valley. Of course, this does have the painful side effect of nothing quite looking that unique or visual either. The only real cool thing that this game pulls off is the scale of the environment. Because you're an arachnid, everything is huge, and not once in the entire game does the game forget that. Simple rooms that would be easy to traverse for human legs like you and me are entire journeys for this small little spider. I always like the small detail that the more pickups you collect, the more and more your spider grows metal. Starting out this cute little tarantula looking dude and digimorphing into a full metallic spider when fully kitted out. Now there is something I don't like about the environments, but it ties into gameplay, so we'll skip it till then. And you know what? While I'm platforming around at the speed of sound, I genuinely have some banging beats to listen to. I'm surprised that so much of the game has good music, ranging from hard butt rock tunes. To some jazz-induced upbeat tunes. And at one point channeling fully Crash Bandicoot's Hang 10 with its own surfer rock song. Now, no, none of these are no Rush or Iron Maiden, but damn it, all the music in this game is at least good, and I won't hear otherwise. Sound design is also a pretty big component of the game too. Sure, you won't hear the ground enemies before you see them, but almost always you can hear environmental traps and certain types of enemies before you run into them, making stopping and listening a completely viable tactic. Now that we're done admiring the atmosphere, why don't we actually, play the game? As for controls, you have surprisingly few. You have a jump button, 2 attack buttons for each side of your spider, although perhaps it would be better to consider them offense and defense, and 2 buttons to switch between them. You can play this game with an SNES controller and lose 0 functionality. So I did. Well, with an SF30 Pro, but still. Your movement speed is rather fast, as well as having a minor delay upon starting and stopping movement. It's not a cinematic platformer, however, and you should be able to get used to it. You're gonna wish that you didn't, though, however, trust me. Being a spider, however, there's a few things that you can do that you can't do in most platformers. For one, you can climb up, down, and all around almost any surface. I say almost because there are exceptions to this rule, mostly designated by this mossy-like substance, but occasionally the platform is just too slick or too small to get your body around, and these aren't marked, or you slide off upon trying. However, due to the unique way that you can climb around platforms, it means the spider will never truly just walk off a ledge. You have to jump off, which can actually make some of the larger jumps in the game a bit easier. In a surprising adherence to reality that I thought they would break, the spider can't grab surfaces on its head. And an acceptable break from reality, to counter this, if you are on a vertical surface and jump, the spider will automatically jump upright, allowing you to grab a wall facing away from you. But what if you decide to jump while upside down? Well, you plant a web there and then you can crawl up and down it and then you can jump off. It's very short, but it's enough to build up momentum for jumps or to dodge an enemy or two or to collect an item that you missed from the fucking weird hitboxes. I'll get back to that. However, you are not just any normal spider, you are a cyborg spider! So, throughout the game you can find weapons which you can use to defend yourself. For offensive weapons, you start with the slash, your default emergency weapon. It's pretty piss poor on a full frontal attack, but never underestimate it. Its range is deceptively long, it can catch enemies from underneath them, and it can critical hit? Double hit? Enemies occasionally just instantly die if you jump attack them is what I'm trying to say. And you better get used to it because it's the weapon you're gonna get the most practice with. Up next are the missiles, which are good in auto track but only have about 3 shots, make them count. The flamer and the poisoner are the next weapons, which do the exact same thing, short range but are deadly if you catch an enemy in them. There's some stat differences, but if there were, I couldn't tell off the bat. Next up is the Electro, which is the biggest disappointment of the lot. It does a lot of damage, it auto-tracks and can reach across the entire screen, but its low ammo capacity makes it only good for a few enemies each. And bizarrely, the basic spiders, the most common enemies in the game, can fucking tank this. I nearly emptied the entire Electro into one of them at one point. They just do not care. And the ultimate weapon you can get, the Boomerang. It does less damage than the Slash, but the trade-off is range and unlimited ammo, which is a godsend on certain levels. For defensive weapons, you have 3 types of mines. One stationary, one moving, and one that's actually a smart bomb. Haha, I lied to you. They're not very good, but can be useful in a pinch or two if you don't want to face an enemy head-on. All of this is well and good, but I know what you're wondering. What is this game like to play? Well, painful is kind of the word I would use. First things first, you get 2 hits. And no, this isn't 2 hits, then you're dead. I mean, we're going off Ghosts and Goblins rules. Get hit once, you're vulnerable. Get hit again, and you die. And there's no checkpoints in this game at all. Fuck up, and it's back to the beginning of the stage or boss fight with all your progress gone, and even worse, all your weapons are taken away. And speaking of death, you have limited lives. Now, why did I quote that? Well, because when you lose all your lives, you're taken to the continue menu that allows you to save, quit, or continue. When you continue, you reload the stage select, where you immediately jump back onto the level you died on. So functionally, Game Over simply puts a minute of menus in front of your next attempt instead of letting you restart the stage like normal. What the hell is the point of the lives then? If there are no checkpoints in the stage and losing all your lives sent you back to the beginning of the stage, I'd understand. But in this case, Game Over and losing a life are the one and the same, just the former takes a minute longer. Thankfully, a lot of stages are pretty short to make up for this rather punishing gameplay, and they often have multiple microchips for you to pick up in a stage if it's giving you the lumps. Think the stars from Mario 64. On top of that, almost every level has a CD piece in it, 3 per world. Find all 3 and you unlock a bonus level, which is usually easier, they have more pickups, and they allow you to restock and rearm, with the only real mix-up being that the final world has 2 secret levels. However, the 1st and 4th secret levels are pretty damn tough, so it's not a complete free ride all the way, but as a reward they do give you bonus microchips. So, when you're playing as a character who's more fragile than a champagne flute, how does the level design accommodate you? Well, I'll get this out of the way. Spider is a hard game. Enemies are constantly on the move, and the small camera makes it very easy for something to come out of nowhere and zap your ass before you can react. The Spider's base speed does not help matters. He is pretty zippy as far as characters go. However, this does mean that levels breeze by pretty fast so long as you can learn enemy spawns and trap timings. And to give the game credit, because of any real lack of punishment for dying, the levels have a certain, Super Meat Boy-esque charm to them. However, this may be worsened a bit by the game's weird hitboxes and level design. For the most part, the game is fair on hit and hurt boxes when it comes to damage, but things seem constantly out of whack everywhere else. A lot of pickups and items are put ever so slightly above or below where the spider can reach, so you're constantly needing to jump or spin a web to grab onto something that you're clearly clipping into. And while I praise the spider for not immediately jumping off cliffs when you walk off them, if you're on a flat plane and a hazard is on that flat plane, you will take damage trying to jump it. And if that plane is lava, it's an instant fucking kill. And of course, that's where the game decides to put its trickiest jumps in. Now, on the positive note, the level design is actually pretty neat. Despite exploring real-life locations, things that are fairly mundane to us like crossing the street or going for a stroll in a park are levels full of danger. And because you're a spider, bitch, we're gonna make a few levels entirely based off climbing with at least one completely vertical level going up a building. Why your spider doesn't just climb up on the wall is beyond me. And occasionally this does present a problem. Any level going into or out of the foreground becomes a bit of a guessing game due to depth perception. Minus that one time that they chose a top-down perspective. Good shit, boss. And rarely, foreground objects will completely obstruct your view while you fight off enemies. But hey, if the game wants to cheat, then so can you, as often in these areas you can instead come from the ceiling where the enemies can't get you and pick them off that way. That's what you get for being an edge-guarding little shit. However, while most of the game takes place in realistic locations, there are a lot of levels, specifically later, that take place in abstract locations that don't really make sense. Like the inside of a hard drive. Or this level on floating dinosaur bones. Or a fucking Aztecian temple surrounded by lava where they force you to fight two of the hardest enemies back to back without a weapon. Who designed this shit? The excuse is it's a museum, hence the silly level design. But then this should be fake lava and yet it's an instant kill, so eat my entire ass, game. And it's often here where they decide that the level design needs to become more bullshit. Since they don't have to conform to reality, they can do whatever they want. It's telling how near the end of the game there's an entire sewer world, and it's more fun and enjoyable than the museum world that comes right before it. Museums, how could you betray me like this? I loved you, museums! You were like a brother to me! Speaking of the museum and difficulty, there are boss fights. Only 3 of them, but they're all pretty damn tough. They take an insane amount of punishment, all have janky hurt boxes or move incredibly fast, and will probably make you game over multiple times trying to fight them. The first boss is probably the easiest. Keep moving, hit it when it smashes down, repeat, stay still when he throws something. The museum boss is ridiculously annoying because before you can even fight it, it causes a huge stampede of blocks to fall that you must dodge. Although occasionally they drop a super useful health pickup, and then it comes down and what the fuck is that thing? What the fuck is that thing? Jesus Christ, game, kids to adults? Well, fucking Montezuma wants to come out and gorge out your eyeballs. And he's tough too, requiring some pretty fast reflexes on your part to see which side he comes from and to whack him. At least it gives you the boomerang for this fight. Once you've beaten the sewers, which is the penultimate world, you can... Oh, wait, I can't move on? What's going on? Oh, I get it. See, as I was playing the game, I was completing every single bonus level up to this point. So up till now, I never got gated off by the number of microchips because I always had the required number. But here, and right before the final boss, strangely, you're gated off until you can go and collect a lot of chips. And by God, the final levels are brutal. The penultimate stage has you climbing on the ceiling for most of it, meaning almost every hit is an instant kill since you drop to the ground after you are hit. And then the final boss is just absolutely insane. He has 2 attacks, and neither of which are easy to avoid. The first is to see you jump over, but lasts forever and can come from one of 2 directions, meaning that you can get jebaited into running into it. And then the second one is a claw attack, which is the only thing that you can punish to kill him. The problem is he takes like 1 billion hits to die unless you use the environment to take him down, and even then you need to get your own lumps in or he won't go down. But finally you kill the giant freaky brain thing, kids to adults. You somehow save the not dead despite being riddled with bullet scientists, and he runs out of the exploding building spider buddy in tow. And so ends one of the most mysterious games I've ever played. I'm very glad I got to play Spider, and honestly the game is fun, but only in short bursts. Its high difficulty and janky PS1 shenanigans make it a game that can really get on your tits despite nothing really standing in your way, making a game that's really fun to play, but not necessarily fun to beat. That final boss is a doozy, man. That plus its old game status, plus the fact that there are much bigger and better platformers to play on the PS1, means unless you're a retro game connoisseur, a massive platformer fan, or you just really, really love spiders, I can't recommend it. And if you didn't love spiders, how did you make it to the end of this video?